What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
The More Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms. The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching the UK's only alternative late night talk show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm joined by Lyric Benson Ferguson, who first emerged from almost a decade of studying consciousness and enlightenment to create her debut album, Lyric's Love Light Revolution, co-produced by her father, actor-director Robbie Benson, and her singer-songwriter mother, Carla DeVito. Now, all of her lyrics were inspired and taken directly from the poetry that she composed over some very unconventional spiritual years. Now, Lyric grew up in Hollywood and is an enthusiastic screenwriter and attended NYU Film School. Lyric has spent many years as a teacher at The Wholeness, a non-profit organization dedicated to facilitating the full awakening of humanity. And she's been deeply transformed and inspired by their breakthrough technologies, which bring each individual's awareness back to the love and truth resonating in all of our hearts. Lyric joins me today to discuss her book, French Kissing God, A Journey to Enlightenment. Lyric Benson Ferguson, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. It's such a joy to be here with you.
Oh, thank you. Just for the audience, this I think we were supposed to have taped this last year. Was it last year?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a few months ago. Yes.
Yeah. God, how quickly? Can you believe it's the 1st of March as we tape this now?
I know went very, very quickly.
Oh God, where's it going? Time is speeding up most definitely. Now it's beautiful to have you on. Great book. French Kissing God, A Journey to Enlightenment. What a great title.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it properly represents my relationship with the divine. So
And it's not so boring neither. It's actually quite an enlightening title. And that's not saying anything's boring, but sometimes I've come across books where it's quite heavy, which it needs to be because that's the audience it attracts. But this is a little bit lighter.
yeah, I think it shows a sense of humor that I play with a lot in the book. So
I would say so. I would say so. Now, um, oh God, you've been through some stuff. Okay, where do we start? Where do we start? You've been asked these questions 1,000 times. Some you won't, but I need just to know a bit of background about yourself. So, and for the audience as well. Now, the household that you were brought up in, quite unusual in a sense. I mean, your father's quite famous, which you can tell us about, and your mother as well. Was with some very famous people.
yes, I grew up in Hollywood. My father is Robbie Benson. Most people know him as the actor Robbie Benson, but actually, when I was growing up, he was directing quite a lot, and he was directing sitcoms like Ellen and Friends, and it was just I was all the time on these sets growing up. So I had somewhat of an unusual upbringing. And then my mother was the girl in Meatloaf. Her name's Carla DeVito, and she's an amazing singer. She sang with Meatloaf. She was on Broadway. She's just incredible. So she became a stay-at-home mom when I was born, but I definitely did have an unusual upbringing in that way.
Absolutely, and again, this household, yeah, it's probably true to say it wasn't a sort of spirituality wasn't as in indoctrined in yourself as it is now for you. It wasn't your truth back then, was it, in a sense?
No, actually, I grew up very secularly. My parents are remarkably moral, very kind human beings, but my mother had a very bad experience in Catholic school growing up, so she wasn't very into organized religion. My dad, his grandfather was an Orthodox Jew, but then by the time my dad was born, my grandfather was not religious at all. So yeah, it was we talked a lot about just being good to people, but besides that, there was no real spiritual I don't
Yes.
know
No, I completely
doctrine,
understand.
as you said.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, obviously, we're going to have to give just a bit of background here, but just shooting to the present moment now as well. We're going to go back. How do your parents perceive your work now?
Well, I think at first for them it was probably a little confusing, because I became a celibate monk when I was about, I think 20, 21, something like that. And so that was a bit shocking. I think they thought I was going to be an actress or something. Um, and so, that was, I remember my dad kind of dropping me off at the, I don't know what to call it. I guess the monastery. It wasn't quite at all like it's a was a coherence creating group for world peace, but the best way to describe it was like yogi monks, and it was all women and everything. And I think he was really shocked that day and just feeling a bit kind of like, oh my God, what's happening? But now they're so proud of me and they love it because I was suffering quite a lot growing up. I had a lot of health problems and I had many challenges, and they saw how these practices and my spiritual path changed me and made me a very happy, integrated, loving human being. So I think that they were just that's all they can wish for me and are happy now.
I think most parents will be happy that their daughter's going to be celibate for the next 10 years. Was it 9 years you were celibate?
It was more, yeah, it was about 9 years. But
Okay.
my father, I think, was not a typical parent and was trying to set me up with everyone. When I came home, like, to visit them for a few weeks or something, he would always be trying to hook me up with some guy. I'm like, no, Dad, no. And like go back
She
into my room and like
she will leave the
hide.
nest one day. She will leave the nest one day.
Yeah.
We'll have that spare room back. Yeah. Okay. Now was this prior to going to college as well? The becoming a celibate monk.
Well, actually, what happened was is I went to New York University. I was
Right.
actually a
Okay.
film major there,
Okay,
and then
sorry about this. I just want to say this is a very important key part. This is, I believe, because this is where you went through some real changes, didn't you?
yeah, yes. I about 3 weeks after my mom dropped me off at NYU, September 11th happened, and a dear friend of ours passed away in one of the towers, and it was very, very intense emotionally, and I think physically because emotions affect the physical body. And I watched her husband just go through so much suffering, and I think that during that period of time, seeing the mass mourning in the city, seeing how out of control we are at every moment in life, but this was a very clear moment where it was totally out of control. And, being touched by mortality, I mean, so many different things. That was a very life-changing moment for me. So I left NYU. At the time, I was suffering from anxiety, depression. I had fibromyalgia. I had stomach problems. I couldn't digest my food. I mean, it was a big, big disaster. And so I came home, even though I was actually doing quite well as a screenwriter there. My grades were good. But I went home to just have a break. And during that time, actually, John Voight, of all people, gave me the book Autobiography of a Yogi, and that's by Yogananda. I so recommend that book, and that's what started me on my spiritual journey. And I actually I learned Transcendental Meditation, which is taught by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, a different guru than Yogananda, but still, they're both amazing. And I studied at Maharishi's University, and then I became a monk. So what happened was because I had so many credits from NYU, and then I had credits from the beginning of the school, Maharishi school, I was able to graduate even though I was part of Maharishi's coherence creating group. So
Well,
anyway,
that's
it was
good.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. So you still graduated. Okay, that's
I
that's
did.
really
I did. I
yeah.
graduated.
Oh, that's cool.
I was magna
Okay.
cum laude too.
Yeah. Well, meant to be, obviously, meant to be. Well, being celibate for all that time, what did you learn about yourself?
Well, I think for me, first of all, you learn that you can be completely self-sufficient and totally, self-referral. You learn, our society teaches us to all the time be referring to other people around us, for opinions and advice, which is so helpful. I think it's a beautiful thing to learn from others. But at the same time, we sometimes can lose ourselves completely. And by I mean the self, I mean both the small self, but also the big self. And then when I was celibate, all you have is the infinity within you to refer to. And so you just learn, you become woven with that infinite field of the self. And so you learn that you are totality. I think that that's the main thing
Yeah.
I could learn. And that also, the divine is so multifaceted and multidimensional that it's completely entertaining, and there's immense company around us at all times, even if it's not in this dimension. So
We're never alone. Yeah. Absolutely. And was it difficult to hold off the urge for sex? Was that a difficult thing? Was it or?
well, actually, I mean, this is getting very personal, but I hadn't actually had sex previous to becoming a monk, although I did have
Right.
boyfriends and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what I
Yeah.
was missing.
No.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, oh, sorry, what were you going to say?
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
At the same time, I would say no. I was so inward. There was no desire. I knew I was a mess before I started my spiritual path. So I knew that I needed to reset myself. I needed like a total cosmic reset. And I I couldn't do that if I was in a relationship with someone. There was no
No.
space for
No,
someone else.
and some people never give themselves that space. Christ, some people just dive in from one relationship straight to the other without any space.
Yeah.
And I'll never get that.
Yeah, that's so important. So
Yeah, absolutely. What I'm wondering, potentially there might have been a past life, who knows, where there was a monk in you that had, this was another way that you had experienced this before, and this was just another re-remembering of that, of a past life.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, when you do such long meditations, you do get some lovely glimpses into past incarnations, and I definitely was doing this many times before.
Yes,
so.
I can imagine. Well, that's where you met your husband as well, because he was a monk as well.
He was. We actually met in school, and he did it himself for, I think, 4 or 5 years, and we were completely separate, so we didn't see each other for those years. We met in college. We didn't really think anything of it. We were just in class together, and then we kind of went our own separate ways, and then we met, I think I was 29 when we reconnected, and it was
Wow.
very sweet. So
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, that's really, really nice. Very interesting, very interesting. Lots of past life entanglements here, I feel. Lots of meant to be's and just destiny and everything with meeting him. And I suppose you can't recommend. You can't really recommend actually, meditation enough in a sense, because it is the way in.
Well, yeah, I think the thing is just the transcendent is the way in. And I practice transcendental meditation, and the way in which it's taught is you effortlessly transcend. And when you experience the transcendent, and the mind can still be active, but you have this powerful experience of the ocean of consciousness, and that is the way in. And once you have that, then you can access that anytime. It's just so natural.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and just before we get into the God, which we're going to,
my favorite topic.
Is Lyric your actual name, or is this?
Yes.
It is. Wow. Okay. What a cool name.
I don't think I'm wild enough to have renamed myself.
No. I did wonder. I was like, this is a really cool name, actually. I was like, yeah, 2 parents that are into music. I'm like, is this them or is this her? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, my brother's name is Zephyr, so we both have unique names.
No, really, really, really cool names. Okay. And what would you say is your purpose right now?
Well, I think that my main purpose is to integrate all of those years of the self, that infusion of being. It's a lot to kind of take in, and then you reemerge in society, and it's kind of like, what the fuck? Excuse my language. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
You can. You swear along. It's okay.
And it's kind of like you're leaving. You have the image of the cave, and it's this womb kind of, and it's dark, and then you have the monk, and they step outside into the light, and it's like, whoa, that's really bright, and this is an unfamiliar territory. And I felt so much like that coming back into society.
Bet you did.
It was very clumsy for a few years. But I think for me, that is my personal, goal at this time, is to just become more and more integrated, that wholeness infused in every moment of my life. But then, of course, to, share the wisdom that was shared with me through these poems over those many years. So
yes. Now, poems. When did you start writing these poems? And because apparently there's over 2,000.
Yes, I wrote over 2,000 during my my monastic years, and I spent the first 3 years completely inward, no writing, no doing anything. And then after that, I had what is called a Kundalini Blowout, where I became very sick, and I just couldn't handle all of the spiritual energy. I was meditating 8 to 10 hours a day. It was, it was a lot of meditation, and I think I did it very quickly. I went from 0 to 60 kind of, and didn't have the proper wiring in my body to handle it. So I had the pleasure to work with some amazing energy healers, and during that time they helped me to like I said, integrate and ground that powerful energy. And that's when the poems began to come. I would sit, and it was a very challenging time, and the divine would speak through me, as me, to me, whatever. It depended on where the awareness is in that moment. Are you identified fully with the universal self? Are you identified with this poor little person that's like sick? Are you identified with somewhere in between?
Yeah.
And so depending on where my identity was, the poems would flow in different ways.
And
So.
did it feel that that it was your voice? Was it your voice in your head, that wiser voice, or was it a different type of voice, or was it no voice?
I would say most of the time it felt like my deepest wisdom, but most of the time it felt like God. It just felt like
Yeah.
God, the self, which is ultimately our identity. That is who we are. So.
Absolutely. And would you say, possibly, because we talked about this off air, that you channeled this from your higher self?
Well, I think, as I said, channeling is such an interesting word because it kind of implies that it's something other than yourself. But when you say channel from your higher self, well, yes, I suppose that's what was happening. You sit, and it's this deep wisdom just flowing through you, and the whole body begins to reverberate differently when that kind of wisdom begins to come, and just this deep silence in every cell of the body. And so I hope that's a good enough answer.
No, well, it's kind of, yes, it is, but I was going to say it's kind of undescribable what it is. It's so there's just no words to put on it, is there? Because if you was gonna sum up God, I mean, what would you? I
Yeah.
mean, what is not God?
Well, I think that's one of the main sections of my book, actually talks about what is God. And I speak about that God is infinity. God is everything. It's the shit. It's the beautiful sunlight. It's the every moment of your life that you cannot accept in the moment, and everything that you can accept. It's all things. There's nothing that isn't divine, and it's also universal infinity. But I did want to just touch on one thing, is that oftentimes I would be, quote unquote, I don't want to say visited, it sounds so formal, but I would have all these different visions of these great beings, ascended masters, different, and they would come to me, and sometimes they would share wisdom, but I never felt channeling, because it was like talking to a friend. They were in the room with me, and um, they were, I was me, they were them. We were both the self, but it wasn't like I was sitting in silence and having some kind of channeling experience in that way.
No, no, and do you know, channeling is it's just a word. God is just a,
Yes.
well, God is dog spelt backwards. It's just a word.
Yes, exactly.
You know, and it's it comes with a lot of oh well, God just come with a lot of weight, doesn't it? It comes with a lot of baggage, a lot of negative stuff has been done and continues to be done in the name of God. Some people like the word source, the universe. It's really what feels right, isn't it? I suppose.
Yes, completely. And I say that I use, God is he, God is she, God is it, God is your dog's flea. That's one of my poems.
That is great.
Thank you. But I also, I consciously pick the word God because I recognize that it needs quite a bit of healing, and the word is so beautiful and holistic and amazing, but it's just been misused. And I have a poem called The Word God in my book, which talks a lot about that issue specifically. Can we wipe this word clean? And so I use the word on purpose because I think it's good to just as if people talk a lot about emotional healing, and if you're feeling angry, upset, you don't push things away. You confront them and embrace them. And so that's what I feel I do with the word God. It's like, no, let's love
Yeah,
this word too.
yeah. Oh, yes, 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 absolutely. Um, yeah, wow, where do we go from here? There's just so much we could talk about, isn't there, in this sense? I think a lot. How do you bring your work into present day moment for people? What do people take away from your work to bring into the present moment to make their life better, in a sense of maybe healed, or whatever it is they may be going through that can help them by just embracing simple stuff.
Sure. Well, first of all, I've just heard that from reading the poems, people do receive a healing. They experience the power of the self coming through the words, and it is a healing in itself.
Wow.
That being said, I think if people are familiar with the mystics, Rumi, Hafiz, the different saints that talked about the divine in a very personal way, and you read their writing, what happens is it helps to enliven and like kindle this fire in each of us. And I know that Rumi and Hafiz's work, did that for me, where it's like a remembering. Oh my God, God is so personal. God is within me. God is the lover, the best friend that's always nurturing me. And it's a reminder. And so my work in many ways, I think, exists in that same way. It's there to remind us that the self is always there. And every poem it's like a lesson. Every poem has a little nugget of some truth in it that we can chomp on and take away and use in our day. That's what I find when I read the work, because now I read it and I like I receive healing from it as well.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. Yeah, so basically, you're practicing your own course. You're practicing your own work, which is always great. Well, you're living by your truth. Your poems as well. On the ones that I read, there is in its core an essence of love, of unconditional love, in a sense, and I think that's what when you went through your time alone. Well, not alone, but this healing period you went through as a monk. There was a lot more self-love for yourself at the end of that process, wasn't there?
Oh, yes. I think a lot of times, especially if people are ill, even if we are so spiritual and on the path, there's a lot of self scrutiny that we have. And what helped me was during this time, the words of the divine, flowing through me, it's just such a healing. And I had the great pleasure. I work with Matthew Reifschlager. He's an amazing energy healer, and I guess you could say maybe a channel. He channels the Divine Mother, and those words of just unconditional love. Um, it's so important that each of us recognize that how much it means to love oneself and how important that is.
I can tell you do. The energy that you bring off, you definitely do, and it's not an easy place to be sometimes for a lot of us.
Well, I think we live in such a complex world, and it's very dense fields of karma, and it's kind of like bumper cars. We're always running up against each other, and it's hard in every single interaction to be like perfect, quote unquote. But what's so hysterical is that we look at these lives of these great saints and sages, and they lose their temper sometimes. They act ridiculous sometimes. They cry sometimes. They do all these things. They have emotions and everything. But it's just they're so infused with the divine that they don't kick themselves in the tush after they do things.
Oh, no, absolutely. I saw the Pope a few weeks ago, or less it was. He lost his temper with someone in a crowd. And, the news made a big thing of it. But it was just nice to see. I thought, wow, the man's actually human. My God, well, partly, yeah. And I bet all these great people, even Eckhart Tolle and all these other people, that, as much as you try to stay in present moment, I'm sure life has ways to push you outside sometimes, and tempers are lost.
But it's funny, though, because sometimes the present moment calls for someone to be reprimanded in a...
Yeah.
Not angry, but, a more strict way. I mean, it's just when we think of ourselves as just a tool of the divine, I'm not like losing my temper, all the time, but it's like,
I couldn't imagine you losing your temper. Yeah.
if you're feeling that rising up within the self, could be coming from a very deep place. So,
right.
There's that thing of you see an injustice, for example. I know politics is very big right now in the U.S., but you see some kind of injustice and you want it changed. And what is that? What is the spark to action? Sometimes it's feeling upset about something. So I just think we should all be easy on ourselves. And
I agree with you there. I mean, I don't try to live by anything else except just to try to be me. And he's not always the nicest person, but I'm trying. And I don't mean I go out there to be harmful to anyone. It's just, I can be grumpy. I can scream and lose my temper, and I can also be quite balanced. I'm not currently going out there, in a state of just, being at peace all the time. I mean, I'm just, sometimes I feel like I go with the flow and just, live this normal, human life. And then sometimes on moments like now, when I'm interviewing people like yourself, it's such a pleasing thing to be in your company because it's so calming and everything else. But, it's I don't know where I'm going with that, but yeah, it swings and roundabouts.
I just think the main thing is to just be easy with ourselves and to be, as much in the self as we can at all times, so that if we are, grumpy, we know that grumpiness is coming from a place of wholeness.
Yeah, somewhere. Yeah, absolutely. And probably as well that when you are tested, because we all are sometimes with people, there is the God spark within them as well.
Oh, of course. And I think if we're true to ourselves, and I think it just comes down honestly to integrity. If every moment, if we're acting in integrity and how we feel is quote unquote right in the moment, that's the best that we can do. And that enlivens that in the other person as well. They see that. And even if it can stir up something in them, I think ultimately it's very evolutionary. So
Yes, I think so. And if someone's struggling with depression or whatever, emotion, physically they're suffering in some form that's causing them to feel down, you read something like your book, and it kind of just lifts you back up again a bit. It reminds you that that there is a deeper calling in a sense.
yes, yeah, that's what the book is meant for, and hopefully will spur that person into some action to help heal themselves, in a very proactive way, because that is what I had to do. I was definitely suffering from anxiety and depression growing up. And, it's hard every day. The spiritual journey is effortless. And at the same time, it takes so much consistency and work and one-pointedness. And, I think a lot of times people just, they need to just realize, it's not like a light switch, it's like a dimmer, and you just got to keep working at it. So
Absolutely. Now there are books out there that trying to, in this metaphysical spiritual field, that trying to look beyond God, that or trying to sum up God in some form, and it's also very difficult because we don't know really, do we? We've to them their truth is coming through, that they've defined it in a sense, but it's very difficult. I know we tried to define it earlier on. It's. Even I can't do it. It's almost like for me. It's the consciousness that we all are. That's maybe the only way I can say
that
it.
is so beautiful. And I I have a little section that I could read if you're interested.
Please, yeah, please.
Okay. So this is actually the note to the reader section of the book. The book is mostly poetry, but there's a few bits of it that are prose. So it says, "Who is God? How can I know? To me, God is an experience, an ineffable presence, a tangible reality. God is the silence beyond words and every particle of this unfathomable creation. God is the source, course, and goal of all things, the supreme power of total indescription that dwarfs the mind and humbles the frightened ego. In my experience, God is simultaneously genderless, formless, beyond description, and quite descriptive. Sometimes God has appeared to me in form, for example, as a he or she. I have seen God as deities from all religions and traditions, as Jesus, the Buddha, Mother Mary, Shiva, Lakshmi, to name a few. They're all celestial forms within the tapestry of divinity that is available to us. Throughout this book, I use she and it interchangeably to describe God. I also throw in words like self or being to spice life up a bit. To me, God has shown itself to be all these things. I feel it's only honest to my own intimacy with the subject to represent God in all forms of her or his remarkable forms. God is an experience," and then I say, "Here's a glimpse of mine." So, of course, you define it because you're just trying to explain things, but basically it's, in my opinion, it's not definable.
No, and I completely agree with you there. I love it. I've got great Christian friends, and I love it when they just say he all the time. And I'm like, I always put in there, like, well, yeah, but she's lovely though, isn't she? And she's so powerful. No, what do you mean? You mean he's powerful? No, she's powerful. I tease them a bit, but they're great. That they are able to dialogue with me and consider things, which is always nice. But what I would like to say as well is, if we have done something wrong, or we're ashamed of things that we've done, or we're looking at to forgive ourselves, and we feel that God will not forgive us if there is something that we feel is the bigger I don't think that's so true, is it, for people that fear this? I think there is no judgment when you cross over from God. What do you feel?
I feel very similarly. I feel that, I do believe in reincarnation. I do believe that sometimes if we need to kind of re-experience or learn something, we will come back and be faced with similar challenges. But I don't feel that that's a punishment. I feel it's an opportunity for growth. And I feel my experience of the divine is all compassionate, all loving, all kind. It's not something that is wrathful or spiteful, or would sends you to some place where you burn or something like this. I think if anything, we burn our own self,
Yes.
and we do it well enough.
We do a very good job. We're really, really good at it. We're very good actors, really good. And I've interviewed a few Christian people recently, and they were beautiful in a sense for in the way that we spoke to each other. But the commenters, the little haters that come on and will crucify me basically for asking the questions that I do. Not so Christian sometimes.
I know, it's a bit sad.
But it's it's interesting to see where people are in their faith. But then there's a load of Christians, I mean, a good, more probably the bigger portion as well, and this ain't anti-Christian or anything like that, but the bigger portion, who are, very loving with their connection with God and their understanding, and come from a different perspective on it. So it's very interesting when you speak to different cultures.
Yes, and I think again, there is always that play of darkness and light in manifest creation, but ultimately the darkness is God, the light is God. It's all the divine play. And I think that is all we can do is if we feel in every moment, I mentioned the word integrity. If we're living in integrity, we're living with our highest light in the moment. And if we have moments where we feel that shadow, a little more within us, then we work to, to evolve ourselves. And, it's all complex and beyond this conversation.
Of course, yeah. This isn't 60 minutes where we're going to sort the world out, and absolutely. And you probably would agree, I think, without putting words in your mouth, that God doesn't punish. So when these awful things happen in our life, we lose someone that's so dear to us, or whatever it may be, whatever it may be, right? The situation. I don't believe that's God punishing us, or it seems to me to be a bigger picture that at some point we chose to experience these things, but I would never shove that down the throat of someone that's going through the grief of whatever the situation is, but just someone that can look back on it right now. I think it seems to me that to be my truth that we choose some of these bigger picture things.
Well, I know, personally, I did have a friend that was murdered right in front of me when I was, I was 20, I think at the time or something like that.
Wow.
And, it was incredibly intense. And I think the main thing is to look upon all these things. I've had many, challenges, as we all have in our life. And I look upon them now as kind of this conglomeration of lessons that I have learned in order to become a more, I don't want to use the word, a divine human being, I guess you could say. And we can always take things, what we get handed, we cannot control. Even if we had made a previous agreement, we don't remember it now in this incarnation.
No, we don't remember. No, absolutely. Not a clue.
But at the same time, we have this this acceptance, and that it's like how you swallow the medicine, or maybe medicine is the wrong word, but the food is depends on how you digest it, and so if you think of things instead of things can be horrible and you can have emotional reactions to them and you can cry and feel grief and all these things, but just a general acceptance of what you're going through can help smooth it out so much. And these life things were just the greatest teachers and made me so much more compassionate and loving. And I think they do that with all of us.
I think so. So now you're where you're at with all these years of this wonderful journey behind you. When you look back on that day when your friend was murdered in front of you, do you think that was a teacher for you? That was in disguise?
Well, I think every moment of life is a teacher, and I don't think, there's things about what happened that you can still go back and use, as we say, judgment, or be critical and say, if this had happened, or, they should have behaved this way to, stop this from happening. It's not that you act like you're like in fairyland, but at the same time, you recognize that, that this was something that was brought to me. And yes, I do have full acceptance of it in that way, and it was, to see someone leave their body is definitely a life-changing experience. And just as I saw a friend give birth, both of those things were incredibly powerful.
Oh yes, yes, absolutely. But one's bringing in new life, and one's leaving life. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And for those out there who wouldn't embrace any of this, they would just look at what you've been through. For example, when your friend got shot in front of you, that's just something terrible, but this is something that life just throws at you sometimes, and there's nothing to learn from it. There's nothing spiritual. There's nothing more than this existence beyond this realm. This is it. When you pass on, my life's really happy right now, and I wouldn't want to look at any of these subjects. Well, if that's where you are, and you are kind to yourself, and that you'll be as far as you're concerned, you'll being of service to people and stuff, I suppose, maybe in this lifetime it's not for you to look at these subjects. It's as simple as that.
I think everyone definitely has their own path, and their own flow in life. I feel a lot of times, though, as long as there's no pushing away, because whenever you have a closet full of smelly jock straps, the smell is going to get really bad and come into the room. So the rest of the room, So if there's pain that someone is hiding away, sometimes to open the closet and clean it, it's challenging, very, very, very challenging to go through those emotions. But ultimately, to come to a place of full healing, I think is very important. But if they feel that they don't need that, or they are healed, then I more power to them.
More power to them. Yeah, absolutely. It's just I watch I watch people. I watch vlogs on YouTube as well, and it will never tell you the full story of what that person's really like. I mean, a lot of young people just follow these people, and they think it's it's entertaining. We all need entertainment. Of course we do. Even I watch it, right? Because I'm thinking, oh, he's edited that really well. Do you know what I mean? But to look at it in that bigger picture sense of maybe he never talks about these subjects, but that's not to say he doesn't consider them privately sometimes, maybe. So you could, and I think what this is coming to, really, never judge someone. Never judge anybody. You don't know what they're going through.
Well, yes, that's a beautiful, I think that I learned that recently. I was having some challenge with a very dear loved one who suffering from substance abuse issues. It was such an intense day, and I was at the DMV, and I'm just sitting there, and I am feeling an immense amount of peace, and yet simultaneously there of course is this okay, how to deal with this situation. And then I realized, I was looking around at the DMV, and I thought, each of these people, what is their life like? What is their home like? Someone could have an abusive relationship, some of this and this. And then that's why it's so important to, at every moment, be so compassionate to one another, because we have no idea what the other one is going through. And I feel so blessed that on most days, I just have my adorable husband that I'm dealing with, so he's no problem at all.
You can soon sort him out, don't worry. No, I bet he's a beautiful person. I'm sure he is to be with you. So, okay, well, we've covered quite a bit here. Well, have we? God, I don't know. There you go. I'm using the word God. We've scratched the surface, I think, and we always would do, even if we carried this conversation on. There's a few more bits I want to get through as well. But in a sense of God, I mean, I think I'd end it on this in the sense that if you want to speak to God, I think we all can, and it's just by going into our higher self, and for me that would be through meditation and listening to the voice that comes in your head. Even if it's your voice, you are God.
Yes. Well, the funniest thing is that actually I think you can talk to God just talking out loud. Before I was spiritual at all, actually I talk about this a bit in the preface of my book, is I was on the toilet one night. I wasn't going to the bathroom, but I was just like so sad, and I was just sitting in the bathroom, and I just prayed for the first time ever. And I had no idea how to talk to God, and I said, "Dear God, I don't even know if you exist, but please help me, get out of this suffering," basically. And it was just so funny because after that, it was just like one thing led to another, and all these funny things happened. And then I learned to meditate, and, it was just like, just nature was unfolding. So, I do think going deep into the self is one way, but if you're not quite there yet, just be like, yo, I got the problem.
Exactly. Yeah, just go with the flow. Whatever feels right to do, as long as you're not hurting anyone else and being kind to yourself.
Yeah.
In that moment of whatever it is you're gonna do. Yes, and how much have I loved today? Like I always say to people on this show, how much have I loved today? Come on, get it right, Kev. What would love do in the moment now? What would love do in the moment now?
Yeah, that is absolutely beautiful. So.
Yes. Now, talking about God, you've met God. You've met Jim Carrey. He played God.
Jim is very, very sweet.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I was working with or I still am involved in an organization called the Global Alliance for Transformational Entertainment, and Jim Carrey and Eckhart Tolle were two of the co-founders of it, along with John Rotz, who is a very dynamic spiritual publicist in Los Angeles. And so, yeah, I've had the opportunity to spend a bit of time with him on a couple occasions. He's a very sweet guy. So,
Now, are you still part of that?
Yes, although they're going through some bit of change right now, so it's not so active. I think they're changing it from a nonprofit to a for-profit organization. Yes, I'm still involved in it, but I haven't done much work in it the last few months. So.
No. Okay. Well, it's yeah. You have a connection to the celebrity world, obviously, in some respects. Even if it's from producers to other people that you through your dad as well. What do you see that connection as, in a sense of to be able to progress maybe some of the work that you're doing? Would you ever use those connections to progress something with spirituality and the media?
It's very interesting. I'm very open in many ways. I don't think that I don't rule out filmmaking or anything like that in the future. But right now, I just kind of take it step by step, what I feel I'm being called to do in the moment. And if something like that ever comes up, then yes, I would love to. But for now, I'm happy, just working on my book.
Yes. Yeah. Now, are you writing anything new or?
Well, I think right now I'm just kind of focused on spreading the word on this, and then eventually I think I will probably release the additional poems that I have written and
Beautiful.
Other things. I love writing, so we'll see.
And you never know what's going to come through, really, do you? This may have been the beginning of something much bigger.
Yeah, you never know. And I also enjoy writing fiction. I just love any stories that we can learn from. I think stories are remarkable, whether they're historical or they're just made up. They're such amazing teachers, and so.
Why do I get the feeling of kids around you? I don't know. It's a feeling I get at the beginning throughout this interview. I'm like, she's going to be a mum. I don't know why I'm getting that feeling.
That's really sweet.
Yeah, I think
you're breaking up a little bit, but I think you just said that you think I'm going to be a mother.
I think so.
Sweet.
I think so. Yeah, I think I do. I don't know why that's like throughout the interview that's been coming to me. I'm like, yeah, she'd make a pretty cool mum, actually. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yes, hopefully someday soon that will be the case.
That's the feeling I'm getting. Yeah, okay. Well, you never know where your books are going to lead, do you? You just don't know. I interviewed a woman recently, and she was doing spiritual books for kids.
Oh, yes, that would be beautiful. Yeah. It's very important as you're growing up that you have that in
Yeah,
the awareness always, so.
yeah, yeah. I think that is. Um, okay. Well, what would you say then is potentially the most important message to the audience?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think for me it's just that the you are God. You are this infinity, and that the potential of our human life is to live free from fear and free from suffering, and that it can actually be a reality, and that it's just a matter of being committed to living a life that is based on your evolution, but it's just there's no need to suffer in this world, even with all of the craziness around us. So um, I think that would be one major message that my book.
I'm just going to extend this just for a minute. And that would normally be my last question, right? I need to ask you this, right? Where does that teaching stand in reflection to the crisis in the Europe with the refugee crisis, in a sense like that?
Well, it's so hard, because obviously those individuals are faced with extreme cases of suffering that are is mine. None of us in the West, I think, can even comprehend that level of stress and pain that each of those beings are going through. Um, and what how I feel is just that those individuals themselves, have the opportunity to once, it's an interesting scenario because it's like we are so privileged that we're fed, we're clothed, all of these different things, and that we can have our lives dedicated to spirituality. It's almost a luxury, and these people oftentimes their faith is, you use the word tested, but in very different ways. But if you look at the life of Jesus, you look at the life of Rabia, who was a saint that was raised in a whorehouse. These people had mass challenges, and they rise above it because they find a strength within themselves.
Yeah,
And I know that each of those individuals, you know, if they choose, can find that deep strength within themselves. And
yeah.
hopefully this world will wake up and help these people, instead of just the mess that is happening right now.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that, by the way, and also, they may be a teacher for us as well. It's so easy, isn't it? I was watching it the other day. There's me eating food and watching their suffering. And I thought this is just so 360. The one thing, yeah, that they haven't got is a home and a clean place and food, and there's you watching it for as entertainment in a sense, or on the news, and all I can say from that perspective is really all we can do sometimes is affect the change around us, and it's like a ripple effect, and hopefully it ripples out. I think, you
Yes,
know,
and I think obviously the news is ridiculous in many ways, but also very helpful in many ways, because then you feel this compassion bubbling within yourself. And what are you going to do about it? Do you, try to help them? It helps us to create a connection with these people that are, thousands of miles away. So,
yeah, yeah, and even if you just, I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous to some people, but just by sending light and love out there, it's something rather than doing nothing.
yes, no, it is for
Yeah,
sure, for sure.
yeah, yeah. Okay, well, look, I hope, yeah, we'll close it on that, and it's such a pleasure to have you on, and thank you, for sharing your work with the world, and for making your difference as well.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a joy. And people can find my book on Amazon. That's where it is right now. It's both paperback and Kindle version, and it's available on Amazon UK too. So,
Oh, and just to say, sorry, I should have said this in the interview as well, that your website has been coming up throughout the interview. Your book's been coming up on the screen throughout the interview. And just for those, as this may be just an audio version for some people, sorry, what was your website as well?
Oh, it's FrenchKissingGod.com.
FrenchKissingGod.com, wonderful. Okay, well, Lyric Benson Ferguson, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can watch and listen to all our past interviews on The More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.co.uk, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.